Rightio, 7 and 8. Let's jump straight into it. So, looks like we've got environment artists to look at, which is cool. So, maybe your question was, what can I do to improve my future work? This piece is a university campus converted into a racetrack for a student golf cart racing track. I've modeled and textured everything in the scene. Cool. Okay. So as usual, let's look at it from a high level and just take in what we see. This is awesome. He's just chilling, just vibing. Bro's just vibing. That's funny. Okay. Yeah. These guys don't asset sheet. He's just vibing. My man's just vibing. Look at him. Oh, that's funny. Trees, breakdown, virtual textures of blending, and race track top-down view. So is this? It kind of sounds like it's for a game, but you got quite a few of them. But yeah, might be for a game or not. I don't know. It'd be cool to see it in motion. This looks very like it'd be good to see what it's like running around it and stuff. But so let's cover some base things with it. And I'm on the wrong piece. Which piece did you send me? Yeah, this one. Okay, so portfolio. It'd be nice to see the references that you're using. It'd be nice to see the wireframes or just breakdowns of how you've done some of this stuff. So showing the blending is cool. You could show this with a GIF or something of you moving the slider to control these settings. But additionally, don't just try to rely on VTB and just insert the mesh into the ground. Like VTB is great, but try and start thinking about set dressing. So when you sort of plant something into the ground, try and set dress around it to also hide those seams. And when you combine that with the VTB, it's going to look much more natural. Because yeah, it's blending in, it's putting a texture on it, but you want some set dressing around it, right? It's kind of like a virus pattern. You've got like your tree and you want a clump of foliage around it. And usually it falls off. So you have your tree, your grass, your plants, and these smaller grass and plants, and vice versa. It'd be good to see the reference you're working off for the foliage. For the foliage as well, it'd be good to see how these are made. Is it high to low poly? Is it just speed treat? How did you adjust the shading on it? Because there's probably a ton of stuff that you've done to get these rendered and made. But if you're just showing the images, you're missing out on an opportunity to put those images in so that when you do go for interviews or if you switch jobs or anything like that, you can use them as a talking point. Okay. I'd also consider seeing if you can get all of your trees and foliage onto, maybe not your ground foliage, but try and get your trees onto like one image. So you're reducing the padding. Like you could probably put these trees, down here or something like that, right? Just reduce the amount of vertical scrolling if you can. That's funny. It looks like it needs a detail map, a detail normal. It looks a bit blobby in places, but it could be down to your sculpt as well. Like I can see like the curvature is really big on here as well. So usually when you sculpt stuff, the more minimal you are, the more material definition you'll refine. But the more you over sculpt, so if you take trim dynamic and just hit an edge over and over, it's going to start to look a bit blobby. So be careful of that. Vehicle's cool. You probably have this in another piece, but it'd be good to see how it's textured. Again, how you're lighting as well. So the first bit of feedback is the actual way you show your work. There could be a lot more shown in terms of your breakdowns and how you're doing stuff. And GIFs are great because GIFs, they just take a few seconds to look at and it can show you moving the slider for stuff as well. The Unreal logo is clipping into the bottom of the image down here. You could probably just remove it. You don't need logos on the work for personal work, so I would just take this off and just leave it as it is, right? And lighting wise, I mean, it looks like it serves the purpose of what you're going for. So it's bright, vibrant, colorful. Shadows are doing their thing, and soft. So yeah, I mean, it does its job, right? And you're an environment artist anyway, so you don't have to dive crazily deep into the lighting, but you've done it looks easy on the eyes, which is at the very least what we want. It's just, some of the set dressing, right? So this is like a patch, just like a perfect, almost organic patch. Whereas over here, you're actually doing over here what I was talking about earlier before I saw this image. So you've got your tree, and you've got some fall off, then you've got some smaller fall off. More of that, but around these big areas, because this side looks much more natural than this side over here. So, and you can see here where my mouse is, the transition of your virtual sort of textures is stretching a little bit. So have a look at what's causing that, and make sure that you blend it proper. You got some funkiness going on with the tree, so there's a mismatch of texture density. So this is all sort of well, it's repetitive, but it's flowing with the bark, whereas this one it's just so low res, right? So you want to make sure that when you're unwrapping, you set your UVs to be the same scale, so that you can avoid this. And there are also ways you can blend this seam in a little bit better as well, with vertex painting or anything like that. So just be wary of, yeah, you see that issue a lot more here. Also, I'm not sure what this is, but it's floating. So yeah, on the initial read, of it is nice and vibrant, and when you start zooming in, you start to see like stretching, and texture density is a bit off, and the set dressing doesn't really have too much logic to it. Usually when you set dress, you want to have little islands of foliage that can be plopped around your scene, and especially where stuff inserts into the ground, like a tree and stuff like that. Okay, so be careful of your texturing in that regard. The rock as well, it kind of just looks like a tiling texture that's a bit blurry over just a blob, whereas ideally you would want to sculpt in some major planes of detail in here, and that way the textures can do more. So if you're going to rely on a pretty low res, like a low contrast texture, you need to have more detail in the sculpt. Otherwise, it's going to look a bit weird. Going to look super smooth. So, no, you want to, whatever rock you're trying to do, right? You want to sort of get some planes of information there. So you know, maybe this is one plane, and you've got your curvature reacting on the edge here, and then maybe this is another major plane. And when you sort of cut between these sort of planes, you're going to get sort of, nicer edges on the curvature. So if you have those sharp edges in, you can use that curvature bake and use that to help with your texturing. Be careful of how blurry stuff gets here as well. And again, the grass is just a bit too, it's too mathematical. So we need some different sort of strands that come in and come out, and then over here it gets to smaller ones, and maybe there's like a gap here and some more here, and like there's a little rock in there. Stuff like that is what you want to sort of be looking at. And look to nature. Look how stuff is laid out in nature. is what I'd say. But yeah, I think your camera angles are good. Your lighting, your initial read when I zoom out is good. It's just that you got to put more detail into smaller areas. It's the stuff that isn't the broad surfaces, right? Like the way you set dress and the way you clump up foliage. And reference is going to be key for that. You really need to analyze reference of how some of these areas look in other schools and how the set dressing is helping hide those sort of geometry seams as well. It'd be good to see your wireframes as well. Otherwise, I have no idea how performant this would be. But yeah, hopefully that helps. Look into texel density. I think texel density will be the biggest thing that will help you improve your environments. So not having textures that are blurry and sharp, having textures that all look consistent across the board. All right, and then look into how to set dress with foliage. Think about islands of foliage that you can place around, clumps. I think there's if you Google Karen Stanley. Karen Stanley is an environment artist, and there's a really good, like some sort of really good foliage, either foliage tutorial or the way set dressing is done with foliage, where there's some good examples of how to use islands of foliage to dress around certain levels. Like I said, you were showing signs of it in one of your screenshots, which is like down here. This is looking a lot more natural. This just needs this sort of thinking of layering of foliage and stuff like that. Just needs to be a bit applied all over in places to help you to get the natural look. All right, Adam. But cool. I say the initial read, you're getting there. Just keep it up. Your biggest things to look into are texel density and set dressing of reference and getting better breakdowns into your work. But other than that, I love this thing here. Amazing. Just chilling. But cool, man. Hopefully that helps. Let us know how it goes. See, I recognize this name. Another one of my former students. So, yeah, I know Adam. I taught him a fair bit. And Adam is on the grind of environment and prop art, it looks like. So let's do the same thing, right? Initial reactions. So I almost feel as though you don't need to have the model is points and borders. Okay. I don't think you need to have just one per image. I feel as though you could 1, 2, 3. You could put these first 3 images onto one image. And you could put these onto one image as well. So you've got almost a 16:9 image like this, but for your beauty renders, and you'll reduce the amount of vertical scrolling needed for your work. Also, I think the banners are like the bottom one's fine. I don't think you need the top one. If at least you're having a name, you don't really need the logos of software on stuff. Showing wireframes and all this stuff is cool. Does get a bit heavy in polygons around these smaller areas here, which is almost like the opposite of what you want, right? So it's like the most density is here in these small shapes, but then less density here on these big shapes. So I think a little bit of optimization, you can very easily optimize this stuff, you know, especially in the middle, because you got to look into like tri-fanning, which is what I spoke about on I think the Order 1886 topology video, where the segments you know, the segments on the outside of a cylinder don't need to be the same on the inside, because the outside refines the silhouette. So you can actually start target welding between them. So like a lot of this detail here is, it's not really defining silhouette, so it could arguably be flat, except for this middle bit here, right? Probably pop this out. But there's a lot of wasted topology in here. Almost looks like a high poly in some of these edges. So you'll want to optimize that, and it would be good to see how you're thinking of unwrapping this. So the unwraps are mostly nice and straight, but I don't know, for example, if you've 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You probably just be able to unwrap 2 of them and just rotate them around. Yeah. Unless I'm looking at the wrong UV. I'm not sure. Oh, you did 3 of them. Yeah, you could probably do 2. What's interesting is I don't know why. I don't know how you're. So you've got a trim sheet, but you've got a unique texture as well. But the unique texture isn't an RGB mask, which is interesting. So I'm not 100% sure about that, because you could just do a single, like looking at the material, you could honestly just do a hybrid Atlas trim sheet with repeatable bits, and then 1 or 2 unique bits for the middle, and then just map your asset like that, and then you could have just done an RGB mask. So I think you're kind of almost wasting a texture here, because you could have just done face weighted normals on this as well. So just be wary on that. And if you did sculpt it, you could have used the sculpt as the base layer instead. Yeah, I don't think you need, I think your 3 textures too many on here. So I personally would have done the whole asset as a mid poly face weighted trim sheet, and then I would have mapped the trim sheet to it, and then done an RGB mask to get the unique detail. Because when I see your UV breakdown here, when I think of like the way I would approach it if I was doing the trim sheet one, you know, my UVs would be like, you know, this this whole sort of in a ring. Yeah, that would be like this. You just scroll off. You just scroll off the entire thing, right? So scroll off the UV. That's one tileable, and then these outer edges. Another tileable, another tileable, another tileable, another tileable. Unique bit here, unique bit here. Maybe the stone base over here. And then you can just start to, you know, you get the whole asset in there, and then you use your unique mask for like gradients and dirt maps or anything like that. I think you're almost there with it. I just don't think it's, for my personal preference, it's not in the right order per se in terms of a trim sheet asset. So, yeah. So I'm going to be talking about this in an upcoming video about trim sheet styles, but if you look at, you basically want to look at the way Hamish aims. So Hamish Ames is a great example of the hybrid trim sheet, right? And you want to look at their escalator and their bus. And you'll see that the bus is lots of tileable trim into unique Atlas detail, into half and half tileable that you can map and geometry, into unique detail. And again, it's all trim. All trim and a mix of unique detail. Same with the escalator. It's trim, it's trim, it's trim, unique. We call these hybrid Atlas trim sheets because they contain tileable and non-tileable elements. So I think you need to, for your next asset, focus into that workflow. So just rearrange the way you're sort of approaching a trim asset in that regard. But I think the initial base, like the initial base, is solid. It's definitely an improvement in your texturing ability. I just think your optimization and your trim sheet approach for it could be better, and the way you're presenting the renders. But so you can either use the same piece and try and do that, or you can do it on a new piece. But I think you could save at least the 3 unique textures. I think you've done a lot of extra work to get what you could have gotten anyway with a hybrid trim sheet. Okay, but overall, I would say, is this yours? No. There's definitely an improvement going on there. Yeah, the presentation, the general approach, the optimization, and you'll be good to go. But like I said, I've seen you doing all these sort of challenges and stuff like that. So I think, again, you're on the right path in terms of where you're putting your effort and stuff. But yeah, keep going. Those are the main things to look out for your next asset. I think this asset is solid overall, but it will get brought up for, I do feel it will get brought up for the way you've done this workflow, because there's a lot of extra work that's been done here, which you probably wouldn't, I can't imagine doing this, at least in the games like I've been working on. You would just use these 3 textures and do an atlas. So yeah, stuff to consider. But overall, good stuff, Adam. Definitely a big improvement there, and just looking forward to seeing where you go after that. But there we go, another 2 portfolios or 2 projects. Hopefully that helps. And if you do the improvements, whoever gets feedback, just let me know, send them through, and we'll have a look. But yeah, good stuff for now. Peace.